Welcome to this healing conversation. I'm Loren Gailey. In this episode, we explore the story of off-planet life and stories of ET contact. This is where the stories get spiritual. My next guest is Robert Potter, who says that under the watchful eye of Pyramid Man Fred Bell, and after many years of leaving his body and going through various initiations of light body awareness, Robert Potter was rewarded with several live contacts with his space family. This interview focuses on the story of Valiant Thor, an off-planet created being from Venus who visited Earth in the 1950s, met with President Eisenhower and Vice President Nixon, and lived in the Pentagon for 3 years. Enjoy the show. We are talking the spiritual aspect of UFOs and ETs rather than disclosure. My next guest prefers to call it a reunion of space family. Robert Potter is here to share his personal contact and more information about the spirituality of contact. Robert, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you, Lauren. It's nice to be here with you and your guests again. It's been a while since we had our first show, and we just mentioned, so I'm not sure, I forget everything I maybe said, but try not to repeat some stories, but got lots of wonderful stories about spirituality and consciousness and faith, and where we can come to a better understanding of what's transpiring on the planet as our true spiritual heritage and cosmic destiny is revealed to us through this ongoing process and revelation of truth that's taking place right now.
This revelation of truth, we're going to go into that deeper. We will refresh people's memories, our memory as well. This video conversation is a second session with you, and we are going to invite people to check on the link on this page to get the first session that we did that goes into your background with Fred Bell, and we even went into Valiant Thor. So we're going to pick up right there. We're going to talk about humanoids in the universe. There are many great texts that talk about humanoids, and also even J.J. Hurtak and the Keys of Enoch, that this humanoid body is the Adam Cadman body. So let's get spiritual when we talk about ETs. Valiant Thor, fascinating story, one of the most fascinating stories in America, I believe. He is still said to be here, yet going and coming. Let's start there. What information do you have on that rather old story?
Valiant Thor's original mission, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but Valiant Thor's history is that he just appeared on Venus one day. He was what's known as a created being, or an Elohim. He wasn't born of a man or a woman. And he materialized on the interior of Venus, and he ended up being adopted by the Thor family. And there is Dawn and Thon Thor are his adopted brothers from Venus, and he was there for some time, and he had been studying various aspects of the material plane worlds, and he always thought, I think I mentioned this before, but he had always thought that all life was on the interior of the planet, and learned that life was on the surface of the planet Earth. We, of course, have life on the interior, but he had been studying many of the various worlds and confederation civilizations, and learning and growth, and waiting to discern his purpose. And he was traveling around a lake. He was meditating in front of a lake there, and a flame, a living flame that was shaped like a hand with a finger pointed, came and touched him on the lips. And shortly thereafter that, what we would call the Ascended Master, Jesus Christ. It's a very unique understanding, and people should understand that the Christ is an office. It's not a person. And there's several aspects to this. There's the physical being we would call Yeshua, which was really his name, or we call him Jesus. And then there was Sananda, and then there was an overshadowing of what we call the Creator's Son, and this can be researched through the Pleiades, Billy Meyer's contact notes. You can understand about what's called a Creator's Son. But there's the infinite, which in our earth-based terms, vernacular, is called the Father, but it's really it's not a anthropomorphic type of being in that sense. It's a universal, omniscient, omnipresent consciousness that exists within all forms and is yet transcendent to all forms. And that would be the infinite mind of the Creator, unknowable, a mighty mystery, beyond all thoughts, containing all thoughts. It's unknowable, pure creative source. If you can imagine, I think I might have mentioned this before, but I like to use this. If you just imagine you're looking out and there's nothing there, and all of a sudden out of somewhere like rainbow rays just start coming out in all directions like a sphere. It's just this omniscient presence of pure creativity. And I think I spoke before about the aspect of the Creator and creation. People want to know, was it a Big Bang? Is it a purely material situation, or was it created? Now, the Venusians, Valiant Thor, myself, and many others believe that there is a Creator, and that it has a loving intent and purpose, and that there is a divine plan to ever renew the living spirit of God in every moment, in every plane, everywhere. And this is known as what's called the gospel, or translated as the good news in biblical terms. I can use biblical, I can use various other spiritual texts, but the living presence of God is unknowable, and there is a certain aspects that we call the Trinity, and it actually starts out as one, and it's signified in kind of a flower of life, and then it starts out as a one, and then there's a circle around that, which we call the inner circle. That would be called the Son, and at the same time, you have the relationship between the two. That's called the Holy Spirit, or the Shekinah, or whatever you want to call it. So there's the one, and then at the moment of creation, there's the three. So there's a Trinity, and this Trinity created evolution. There's natural laws to the universe, which we've been held to, misled about. So we have this divine spiritual aspect of creation, and the realization of God is an individual choice. It cannot be proven, and it cannot be disproven. So you have the choice to believe it's a cold, black universe that's just mechanical, materialistic, and there's no purpose. And when you die, you're done. Or you can have faith, and through experience on other worlds is more easily experienced because past lives are remembered and known, and the understanding of the mechanics of creation and who we are as beings is openly taught and shared on worlds that have not fallen under our particular situation in the political realm. But the argument is something cannot come from nothing. So we are something. We know that. We think, therefore we are. As we get that Descartes primary philosophy given, I guess, axiom. And then you also have the reality that, well, if we're created from something, where did that something come from? So we have a paradox that the mind cannot possibly comprehend. So that has to do with faith and someone's understanding. And for most of us here, we've achieved some level of realization, and it's through faith in a living, loving creator, that you can have a personal relationship with, that you can begin to grow into understanding of what the situation is. So there's various, we talked about this before, I think, Russian dolls. There's various gradations of matter in 7 parallel universes, 8 parallel universes. So you have these multiple timelines running along in various dimensions, and they all exist in the ever-present now. So on a metaphysical level, it's kind of this conundrum, and our minds can get lost in these metaphysical principles that it's difficult for us to know. And what's very important is that people know that the answers to spirit and truth lie within themselves. And through the process of meditation, mediter, which means to wait in the middle, and you wait in the middle of your breath through the science of Kriya Yoga, which you can learn through the Self-Realization Fellowship and Autobiography of a Yogi, and the teachings of Babaji. I think we talked about my experience with him before, but we have this process whereby we can listen to God, and we also have prayer. And this is coming from our soul to know the truth of who we are. And the more intense and sincere our purpose and focus and our desire is, the more powerful that we can connect to this inner path of light within ourselves. And that's a big part of where I'm heading now in my particular mission. I was recently contacted by a potent spiritual guide which is an impeachable source from time and space here, a physical being that is directly in contact with the Ascended Masters, and I was honored to be gifted with some teachings that are focusing primarily on some spiritual information, which I'll be coming forward with in the near future. But to go back to Valiant Thor, when this flame came up, it was shortly after that Sananda commissioned him to minister to the people of Earth. And he headed up a contingent of spaceships that had been growing in number through the years and had been placed around the Earth to observe the Earth peoples and to study us and to help us to understand it so that we can be taught how to transcend the limited nature of our lower personality vehicle consciousness. Valiant Thor's primary mission to Earth was to make the public aware that there is other life in the universe, that we're not alone, and that we have a history, and that there is a plan of salvation or redemption for this planet. And he, of course, landed in Alexandria, Virginia, to contact on the outer levels Commander Valiant Thor. There were several other contacts that Eisenhower had with various other groups out at Edwards Air Force Base, and I think it was Muroc as well through the years, and it had to do with the Greys, and he met different groups, and there was kind of a situation of surrender. It's a very complex political process, but it was an open revelation that he made to President Eisenhower through Richard Nixon. And Eisenhower and their group decided to refuse the offers of the benevolent Venusians, whose primary restriction was that they ended all nuclear power, which the military hawks felt was the only possible defense they had. They didn't trust the ET groups because there were many different groups that they were observing, and some of them, of course, were hostile. So Valiant Thor tried to make it clear. They invited him to stay at the Pentagon for 3 years, and where he stayed, and the bad guys did some things there that Eisenhower wasn't aware of, trying to extract information from Commander Val, but there's some stories around that. But they tested his suit, they put a diamond bit on it, his little silver space suit, they put acid on it, it ran off. So
they couldn't cut his suit.
Yeah, they tested the suit. They couldn't do it. Basically, it opens up. There's no zipper. It's a kind of a very advanced technological suit. And they wanted technology was what they're trying to get. They wanted weapons. How did you go so fast? How do you turn at right angles? All of that kind of stuff. And the mission of the benevolent space family is to bring up our spiritual IQ and our connection to the universe before we are allowed to have these more advanced technologies. Now, in violation of certain spiritual principles, other groups have freely given technology to certain elitist groups and various conglomerates of individuals on the planet that are misusing this and keeping this technology secret for themselves, and have been involved in a bunch of, let's call it, chess game interactions between these benevolent forces and negative forces. It's quite complex, but the patience of the benevolent forces is such that, according to their connection, that the beginning and the end is known, and that the victory is achieved, that the universe has a perfect balance mechanism, and no matter how far off we go from our divine will and alignment to spiritual source and the natural laws of creation, there's a perfect balance and learning challenges presented to bring us back to truth. And unfortunately, this has gotten a little bit, it's kind of like we're in an echo time-space continuum that's being manipulated by hostile forces. So I was told recently that the timelines are in flux, and I'll put a warning out to your people I've received recently, that this is going to be the summer of disinformation. I was told that this is the bad guys' last hurrah. They are going to attempt to continue with their programs, their false flags and things of this nature, but the higher forces are definitely stepping up with even more powerful technology to limit these secret space programs. In fact, they do have a technology that's put a shield around the Earth, and they can't even leave. They try to go out and they bounce back. So they have secret. This is a healing conversation, and we discussed earlier that we don't want to bring anything forward of fear, but this is fascinating, though. So this is a positive thing, because these hostile forces are being forced to reconcile their situation. Basically, what's happening in the positive light is that these negative forces and they work on fear. So we want people to know that there is no need for fear. You're an immortal soul, and that things are moving forward, and that the victory of the light and the restoration of truth and the curve of spiritual development for humankind has always been available, but never before more available as the vibrations uplift. So these negative forces, they themselves are going to have to come to an epiphany and a realization. All of their power and manipulation tools which they use to enforce their hostile agenda are being removed from them. They are going to become quite impotent, and they're just going to be maybe angry beings like us. So that's the whole situation, is for us to realize is that it's not this mythological battle between light and dark. It is have elements of a fantasy sci-fi story, but it's an epic story of humanity's struggle to grow into the spiritual light, and this is going to be nurtured and to taken care of through the positive forces. And Valiant Thor is a very integral part of that, being a primary contact from the Solar Council to Earth and overseeing various other groups and contacts. Dr. Frank Strange's had what was called an inner circle. And I've actually just created an inner circle, and I'm announcing it on your show, and we're going to have a special offer for that on your website where people can join that. And I'm currently in the process of digitizing Dr. Frank Strange's Inner Circle meetings, where he shares a lot of information. And I'm going to share an information. Did we talk about the Dead Sea Scroll the Dead Sea Scrolls, Valiant Thor gave the information directly to Dr. Frank Strange's when he was alive, even in the late 90s, that the Dead Sea Scrolls had been found, and the Jewish authorities had 250 translators on these scrolls, and they actually all resigned because the authorities were not revealing the truth of these scrolls, which indicated extraterrestrial contact ongoing throughout Earth's history, communication with biblical figures, landings during the time of Christ, kind of explaining about angels as physical beings. The word angels means messengers, and many other spiritual truths were being kept from the public. When Dr. Frank Strange heard these stories, some of the Jewish authorities called him and threatened him with death because the people didn't have a right to know. But he continued his revelation, and I want to share something about a very unique scroll that the world will hear about in the near future. This scroll is in a very large jar. It was in one of the largest jars found, and I'm not sure if it's been found yet, but if it hasn't, it will be. And this jar is about 4.5, 5 feet tall, and it's covered in actually a woven silver cloth, and it has a scent, a beautiful aromatic scent is in this cave and will follow this jar. When they remove the silver jar, the silver covering, and they figure out how to open it, they don't want to damage what's inside, they're going to find parchments with the writings directly from Jesus or Yehoshua, the Christ, and will share many revelations. The cover of this jar will contain a symbol. Some people, it's kind of like a slightly different symbol than the flower of life. It's kind of like a dreamweaver, a dream catcher design, which is also a reflection of the flower of life, the sacred geometric glyph and symbol. And on that will be the number 7. There will also be the secret places of the lion or the Sphinx. There are going to be UFOs and different artifacts, and information will be bought out from beneath Giza and many other places around the world when the time is right, to show and bear witness to the truth and the evidence of mankind's ongoing contact with our space family. The Mayan civilization was quite advanced. They had these astronomical observatories which acted as ascension chambers. Ascension and spiritual consciousness has been in place in many times on our world, and much of what we think about our past is incorrect. So this is part of the mission and the revelation of Valiant Thor, was to see to it that the secrets that are being kept were brought forth through Dr. Frank Strange's. One of the most important things that Valiant Thor shared was what's called the 5-pointed star of life. And it was highly recommended that we as individuals develop our 5-pointed star. And we have a spiritual aspect to point to the star, where we must acknowledge, we should follow the laws of the Creator and acknowledge our relationship and give thanks for life, and have a humility before the living presence of infinity, if we want to call it that. We also have a physical point. The Venusians are always impeccably dressed and take excellent care of their body, and are extremely adamant that we respect our body, we drink plenty of water, that we eat healthy foods, that we exercise, and we take care of ourselves on a daily basis. There's also what we call the social aspect of life. No one should become a hermit and get locked in their room. We need to interact and have fellowship with our fellow man. There's a balance there. One shouldn't just be out running around from party to party and being what we call the hail fellow, well met kind of guy, the backslapper, always congenial. We have to have a balance there. Same thing with the physical body. We don't want to become obsessed with our physical, become a musclehead and just involved in our physical body in the narcissistic sense. And again, spiritually, we need to be balanced too. We can't become closed into, just thinking we're the old spirit, everyone else, and you become judgmental with that. And then the other aspect, which we would call financial, but they don't have money, they call it service. We have to have some sort of way of contributing to our world and sharing our life energies and support of each other in our community. And the fifth point is mental. They always ask that we develop ourselves mentally and develop our imagination and our powers of concentration and focus through various techniques and disciplines, and to be open to learning, to new ideas and new things to develop ourselves. The 5-pointed star is a very big part of the message of the Venusians and Valiant Thor. They believe that developing yourself equally on all 5 points is very important for us to move forward with.
Fascinating story.
Yeah.
So I know you can share more, so we're going to let you go. But talk for a moment on the meeting that you've had. Well, actually, no. Let me back up. Val Thor used to just pop into the car of Dr. Frank Strange's. Now, here's a story that could be quite unbelievable to many. I know those watching this are fascinated by it. However, this story, let's talk about Frank Strange's. He was a minister, and he had a lot to lose to put his neck on the line like this. So for him to come forward with this story as his truth is quite amazing. Let's talk about how Val just appeared in his car. What does that tell us? It tells us that Star Trek is real, materialization, that it's real. Okay. And this is what we're going to become. We're going to become like Val? Or that's what higher vibrational beings are then?
Greater things ye shall do. It's a process of ascension, and the spiritual toys and the technologies and that can do that is already available and can be put into place. But Valiant Thor, as a created being, can just do it on his own as an act of will, just basically being above an ascended master type energy. He basically can go and do whatever he wants throughout the universe just by divine thought and will. Not all extraterrestrials are able to do that. But what happened was Dr. Frank had his experience with Valiant Thor, and at one point I think when President Johnson was there, they called Dr. Frank in. He goes, "How did you get past the security at the Pentagon?" Because everyone knows the story where he got into the Pentagon there. Valiant Thor invited him. He got past 4 levels of security in and 4 levels of security out. And he said, well, Dr. Frank used to be a Secret Service agent. And here's an interesting story. His life was kind of protected and ordained. He was going in a counterfeit, and one guy was going to shoot him. And he didn't see him, and he heard a shout. And the guy dropped the gun and was trembling. And what the story is, the guy told, is that he was about to shoot Dr. Frank, and a 14-foot tall being bent down in the ceiling, had a big sword, and was going to swing it at him, and the guy dropped the gun and freaked out. So Dr. Frank's been kind of protected and tagged along this thing. My contact, who I just spoke to, said Dr. Frank Strange's was absolutely one of the highest integrity contacts, and that he was always straight up, as they called it. He actually was tested, they gave him false information, which didn't sit with him, and he never released it. He passed many tests. So Dr. Frank Strange's was a very warm, spiritual person, and he was a bit of a fireball. He kind of had and I said, what's the story? He had such a preachy Bible kind of way about him. And they just said that was his background. In fact, Dr. Frank said, I'm going to preach today, but Commander Thor told me not to preach. He says, can I get an amen? He was like that. But he had very potent spiritual truths. And if you're interested in that, I'm going to be releasing his Inner Circle meetings as part of the Inner Circle. I'm going to provide that. Is going to be, you're going to get a meeting every probably 4 or 6 months, maybe every 3 months we'll release a new meeting there, and many other benefits. But we're going to digitize that, and some tremendous stories there, including this story where after he talked to Lyndon Baines Johnson, he said, who actually was responsible for Kennedy's murder in a big way, he was let go. But shortly after that, Valiant Thor materialized in the back of his car, and Dr. Frank was scared to death. And he pulled over, he's kind of shaking, he says, get in the front seat, will you never ever do that again? And he goes, okay. So he never did that again. He always called him, but Dr. Frank got used to it at a certain point in time. I think he developed more of a telepathic communication and got warning. But yes, Valiant Thor did just materialize in his office. He often took spaceship rides from Victor 1 to Switzerland and various locations inside the Earth, outside the Earth to Venus several times. And part of his mission, he was actually went with Valiant Thor in little scout ships here and there. So he had a very intimate association with them, and was highly respected by them, and considered one of the most discerning of the spiritual contactees.
And there's where it gets spiritual, because Val Thor was contacted by Ascended Master Jesus, you said. And so this is a mission for humanity to recognize the Christ within. And that's our God. It's a stair step. And talk more on, well, okay, this is fascinating, because the Inner Earth and Dr. Frank in a spaceship going to Inner Earth, you knew him in his lifetime, so you've chatted with him. Did he ever describe Inner Earth to you?
He did. He said it was very beautiful. He used the terms glorify God. He said things were big down there. They had grapes the size of watermelons. The beings there were 9 to 14 feet tall. And there is a Stargate that's in there that you can actually, it's like a portal. Sometimes the ships leave the surface of the Earth and they go out, they get to a certain point. There's sometimes portal or materialization points halfway between different bodies. There's usually a portal between there that they can use to jump on what we call astral pathways. And he said that the ship raises its vibration and actually travels like it's a thought. But the Inner Earth life, he didn't get too much into details other than to say he did pet a unicorn and see some extinct species of dinosaurs and other things that still exist in the Inner Earth. He said that the people raise their voices in song and praise like they do on Victor 1. They have a tremendous group choirs that seem to raise their voices in unison to what is called the music of the spheres. And so there's an attunement to a divine energy that unifies the community and attunes their spiritual vibration to a sound current that is a reflection of the universal order and the principle of nature. So he went from there to the planet Venus, where there was a huge delegation waiting for them. Whenever Valiant Thor arrives, it's announced through all of the media on their planet. There's no advertising, but they do have a news station and a television station on all worlds. It's like United Federation television show, and they get information. There's commerce between other worlds and things like that. So we kind of really need to come up to speed and stop, A, worshiping ETs, B, fearing them, or putting them on a pedestal, just understanding that there's many forms of sentient life along the Adam Cadman on the physical plane, as well as higher dimensional planes. And the higher dimensional planes all have a physicality to them too. When you're there, it seems physical to you. You're not going to notice any difference. The colors may be a little brighter. There's different aspects if you're in various bodies exclusively, but the attunement factor is something that's not really understood and known yet on how that works. Even for our advanced space programs, they're understanding certain aspects of it, but we're just blocked from that now, and wisely so, because we're irresponsible and immature. And it's hoped that very quickly, with the truth being revealed to us, that we can come forward with this type of understanding and technology. So the Inner Earth description was beautiful, large beings. He talked about this singing, how Valiant Thor was recognized and acknowledged. He's well respected. And he didn't go. He petted. Did I say petted a unicorn? I go, really? Because he just say they exist. Because it was a flying white unicorn. I go, okay, whatever.
Okay, let's go back to dimensions, higher dimensional planes, because what you said there is very fascinating. We've talked on this show about Inner Earth being fifth dimensional, higher vibration, and there's other areas under the Earth that might not be so high vibrational, but that's another story. So when you're talking about higher dimensional planes and that you're still physical, have you been on a ship? Have you gone through other dimensional planes, or just in astral projection?
As I said, my early experiences were all astral projections. I did have one experience on a physical plane, and I know because I left the house at 11 at night, and I appeared at 5 in the morning. We materialized down there, and I had a short memory, and that's chronicled on the front page of my website, The Promise Revealed. I talk about that experience there. Unfortunately, all my memories were kind of shrunk, and I asked Dr. Bell about that, Fred. He says, oh, that's the veil. He says, you'll get those memories back later. My friend Cobra also mentioned that, but it seems from my experiences, I've been asked now to develop myself more along a spiritual path, and I've been, as a light worker, we've all been in this a long time, and when we finally decide to take up the mission, so to speak, fully, whichever that is, some people have a public exposure mission, and some people are behind the scenes. There are many contactees working at very high levels who have never said a word, and they'll be coming forward with a lot of information. I'm a particularly decided to come out to the public and go forward a little bit because that's just my nature of what I'm supposed to do is. And they basically, I recently, was kind of schooled that, look, it's not if you have another book or if you're headlining at a conference. It's not if you get another intel or how many hits you get on your site. That's not what's important. What they told me is important is that now they told me very clearly things are accelerating extremely rapidly now. And this has to do with the spiritual outpouring of the higher dimensional frequencies into the physical plane of the earth. And this is going to bring about a lot of changes in people physically. For those who are resistant to growth and who are caught in a matrix program feedback system, they may lose their forms. Their bodies may explode from the lack of ability to assimilate the higher frequencies. And this is just a natural law. People have to realize that their worker bee drone attitude that they've thought is all good, the values of you're going to get up and go to work every single day, Jackson Brown, I'm going to pack my lunch in the morning and go to work each day, the pretender. We have to realize there's more to life. It's a joyous expression, and they really want us to get into living in the present moment with the faith of like walking on a cliff, and the steam is so you can't see the ground. You have to have faith that everywhere you step is going to be open to you. As you take each step, new doorways and synchronicities will come to you. They made it very clear to me. I am to focus on my own spiritual vibration and to embody more spiritual principles within myself. I still have some anger issues. I have some, what we call miasmas or fixations. We are this luminous body. We talked about this before, the metaphysical aspect of who we are. We're a luminous, nameless cluster of feelings, an unfathomable light body, a torrent of energy that has connections to other things. And there's things that can affect our energy and our perceptions. And where we focus our attention is very important. And we have a lot of programs that are pushed upon us to create feedback loops into dysfunctional, fear-based programs that relate to the past. We need to cut the cords of the past and to live in the magic presence of the eternal now, ever renewing ourselves in a spiritual communion with creation, God, and our fellow man, living the golden rule. So this is the simple thing that we need to do. How to do it? We have our kids. We have all of those negative things, chemtrails, vaccination, cell phones, HARP, blah, 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 fluoridation, depleted urine. So much negativity. And on top of that, we have a system, a Satanist system, that is controlled by criminals. Everyone understands now the financial system is a Ponzi scheme, and it's designed to just steal our energy, and all of our resources and everything has been given over to irresponsible people, and they need to be exposed, arrested, removed, and this is part of the process of that needs to take place before we can have the reunion. They didn't like the word disclosure. They made it clear to me that they don't like there's a lot of people out there focusing on negativity and the revelations of every step of what the bad guys are doing, and they told me withdraw from that. Now, I support Kroger's information. He has a unique niche. But for me personally, they asked me to focus more on my own spiritual development and to prepare some teachings in regards to healing technologies and stuff like that, the pyramids, the crystals and the lasers, the tachyon energy, to bring about a positive vibration in people. So they wanted me to encourage people to develop themselves along spiritual lines and to focus on my own spiritual path and for us to embody this living presence more through meditation, through prayer, and through service. Whatever we're called, so many people, and probably they contact you, I don't know what to do, I know something's up. People just have to go within and listen. We have so much lack of faith in our own spiritual presence. We have to know that we all contain the Christ. And I mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again. We have the pyramid principle, which is the principle of matter made flesh, because the pyramid produces a life force energy field that is basically has an aura to it. And then you have the Christ principle, which is the principle that matter as flesh, conditioned through time and space, returns to spirit. So it's kind of like the physical plane where we're at is the vanguard of spirit. The mind and ideation of God is expanded to its limit, and it itself is growing within its own field through the experience of material life. And so through material life, through our synthesis of the divine nature of consciousness and the joyous expression of life, we actually grow and we raise the vibration or ascend matter in our bodies to a higher spiritual plane. And this is our life's calling and mission, and everyone's going at a different rate of speed. In the near future, we will have, I can tell people, I want to give a positive revelation for people that there will be positive light centers around the planet where contact's going to be made. They're already established. Some of the vortexes haven't been created. They're creating new vortexes. One of the primary vortexes on the planet now, actually, is in Lake Titicaca. It's the divine feminine vortex of the planet. I'm taking 2 groups there this July and August before my Mount Shasta conference with Omnek. People can look at that under upcoming events on my website. You can look at those conferences. I highly recommend the Mount Shasta conference. It's going to be a wonderful experience. But this vortex, the ground crew, we as people should be gathering with like-minded individuals. All of us who are feeling these spiritual calls, like your people who are, their families are going, what are you doing on that webinar again? You're lost in some fantasy world. Would you take care of the dogs and the pet? And you have to be in both worlds. And I don't recommend that people try to share or shove this information down other people's throats. But it's important that we follow our inner guidance and our spiritual awareness, and don't get so caught up into the details. A lot of people want to know what's this and what's that and what's this and what's that. Go with the feeling. The feeling is very important to maintain your vibration on a focus of a divine relationship, and just know that as you speak to God, God's listening and God hears you. And if your intent is virtuous, and if your heartfelt desire is true, and the stronger your desire, the stronger you can magnetize and manifest things to you. There's the law of correspondences, the law of manifestation, the law of cause and effect. There's various laws and spiritual principles, which I'll be sharing in my Inner Circle teachings. They asked me, I said, I'm not really into secrecy. I think people should share things. And they said, well, you got to realize you've been in this I've been in it for 40 years with contacts. I'm extremely patient. And I have a tremendous tenacity for the truth. And I know a lot of people have the same situation, but there are a lot of people now, Lauren, who've come into this, and it's just the way it is. They come into it through the conspiracy stuff, the 9/11, the Waco, the 3/11 tsunami, all of the negative things, the false flag shooters, the mind control, the chemtrails, the vaccine. A lot of people are coming in through this, what's going on, the matrix. They're waking up to the matrix. And for those of us who've been in it a long time, some of us from the old days started off through the spiritual, and then we got the matrix information, so we had a background. They really wanted me to reach out to the youth who have no spiritual background to this, to begin some teachings to share with them and give them the assurance of the positive natures of the plans for contact that are coming forward, that will take place. And we don't have to worry about these destructive scenarios. The Nibiru is completely false. It's all disinformation. There's no such planet, at least in the terms that it's described in our solar system. David Wilcox come out with this guy named Corey Goody T, who's, I believe, is a real guy. And he's talking about the Blue Sphere Alliance beings and David Wilcox's latest revelations. They've been here for a long time. The government's known about them. They just haven't been active till recently, and they're stepping up into more of a civilization from the center of the galaxy, and they are stepping up the plan, the timetables to realign the timelines that are still in flux. So there's no dates can be given, but we're moving forward in a very positive outpouring of spiritual vibrations which people can tune into. And I recommend that people utilize their focus and awareness and to gather in groups and to if they can, if they're near a sacred site or a vortex, or if they can find someplace in nature, you can even be in a dungeon in the darkest space and invoke your own vortex and create through your own divine presence, through this connection and adoration of your own Christ self or Krishna self. I don't want to get secular here. It's a universal principle that's been is known throughout the galaxy by different names, but it's basically a choice between selfishness and selflessness. And I'll be sharing in the inner circle, if people want to join that, the Royal Order of Melchizedek. There is an oath of office that I took when I was asked by Frank Strange, who said Valiant Thor asked me to join the Order of Melchizedek. And that was a unique experience when they called me up, and a member of Victor One came and placed their hands on my head and looked into my eyes, and I had a very unique experience. And I took that oath very seriously. I'll be sharing that. But to know that we are not alone, we never have been alone, never will be alone, and for us to stop focusing on fear and sitting on our computers waiting for the latest fear update. I recommend folks you stay here with Lauren Gailey and focus on her positive healing energies. And this information is important, that we move forward in our daily lives and using the power of our decision. That's the only power we have, is the choice of where we place ourselves. And they gave me some principles about identifying and prioritizing, visualizing. Imagination is very important, to invoke and to see every detail of what you're going to do, and then to use the spoken word and action and just let it flow naturally from intuition. You have to take action. You can't just sit and think about things and what you're going to do and talk about them. In fact, Valiant Thor gave a very strong admonition to not talk about things that you want to do of a positive nature. But if you have negative things, one of the most important exercises, and I'll be sharing this as well, is the writing out exercise. And what I do every day is I listen to some music. I like kind of Indian sitar music, and I write out for 15 minutes only on a piece of paper all negative thoughts. And at the end, I don't look at them, I don't reread them, reinforce them, I burn them. So no one can see my most intimate negative ideas and thoughts that come across my mind, and we all have them. And this is part of our focus. The second aspect of my focus is to go into a 20-minute silent prayer and meditation. I also do these prayers, and I can share these prayers with your audience right now, and they're on my website. They're the three ring of fire prayers. Did I share them last time? I don't want to repeat, but okay. There's the first one, the outer ring of fire. Eternal Father, creator of the universe, hear this day my petition. Surround me now with your divine ring of fire, the fire of your protection, the fire of your abundance, and the fire of complete healing, and the fire of divine abundance. I now command the hand of Almighty God on my behalf. This very moment, let it be so, in the blessed name of the Creator, and the Sovereign Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. The middle ring of fire is as follows. In the name of the God of everlasting creation, I, as a child of Almighty God, hereby command all evil forces of darkness to release me now from every force, power, and authority that is binding me and preventing me from becoming fruitful and successful. I hereby rebuke all the forces of the evil one, and I command you to take your hands off me now and forevermore. I hereby exercise full authority to bind and cast away from me all negative evil influences. In the blessed name of the Creator, amen. So be it. And the final one, which I really like the most for some reason, it just gets me a little closer there, is in the inner ring of fire is, Eternal Father, creator of this universe, hear this hour my earnest prayer. Anoint my eyes, my ears, my lips, my mind, and my heart with your divine inner flame of fire. Provide me now with perfect health, abundance, and longevity. Lord, revitalize and redirect my energies into your divine service. Touch me now with your divine inner flame of fire and cause me to be the perfect master that you intend me to be. In the blessed name of the Creator and the Sovereign Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Now, Dr. Frank, we always did that. You can actually find inner circle prayers. You can see, actually, I think there's one online, Nick Besoned on YouTube. I'm actually in there. You see my little bald head, but we did that in a group, and he always recommends that you have a candle in front of you for those prayers. He recommends a 5-minute candle gazing of looking to bring yourself into alignment to the presence of God and to focus on that candle as an expression of the eternal flame and living presence of the Word of God within ourselves. And the Venusians always hold their hands up in a receptive attitude of receiving a blessing from Spirit when they say that. And at the end of those prayers, I blow out a candle. That's the final part of my thing. There is another technique that I'm going to recommend for your audiences, and this is called imagination. They really want us to start visualizing, imagining. And they'd like you to recline or to sit in a comfortable position. And one of the things I'd like that they mentioned is to visualize your dream home. And first of all, you choose a location. Are you in the forest? Are you on a rocky cliff on the ocean? Are you perched in a desert? Where, any visualization that you'd like. They'd like you to see your front yard. They'd like you to visualize your house. Take a 360 panorama. Look at what you have. Look at your door. Look at the hinges. Is there a hole? Is there a glass? Is there a symbol? What is it? And then they ask you to go out and step outside into your garden and grass. And then they ask you to lay down and to visualize the light from the Creator, from the Grand Central Sun, as a direct channel coming directly into your body in a blue-violet flame, and holding that intention of your connection to Source and Spirit, and you as a conduit, that the inner earth is sending this flame, this rod of light is coming from the Grand Central Sun and going to the center of the earth, into the center heart of the being, the Ancient of the Days, of whom not may be said, used to be Sunat Kumara, is now an unnamed being. They said that he is no longer, it's another being now, but said the name's not important, but that we are the magnetization of that spiritual force and the outpouring on the physical plane, and to take responsibility for who we are and our actions. So those are a lot of the positive teachings that I'm going to be sharing more of and going into detail in my future mission. I am going to be given certain information in regards to the history of our solar system and to life on the planet, in conjunction, hopefully, with some other people. I won't go too much into that right now. I was surprised the security is a bit of an issue. I thought things were a lot easier now, but there is still elements of security involved in my communication and how I get that information for their safety as well as mine. But I personally have no fear on that level, really. I don't think about it. I'm not holding like a free energy device. All I have is my mouth. And I want people to realize that we need to arm ourselves with the weapons of spiritual presence and awareness. You have the power of truth. You have the power of the spoken word. You have the power of your thoughts and your feelings, your positive feelings. These are the most potent weapons of creativity that can manifest change in our world. And we have to stop feeling disempowered. Stop looking at the television every day. I don't have a television anymore. For several years now. I mean, I check in every now and then. I do love to go in and watch a sports game. I love the Super Bowl or great basketball. I do tune into that. I know it's a bit of a distraction. Sometimes you can find a good movie, but you look at Hollywood these days. Oh, my goodness. What do they crank out? Endless fear and darkness and all programming. People, when you watch these things, your feeling nature becomes involved in that, and it entrains you. Do not let your children do these video games. I don't care. It's like taking someone off a crack or someone off of sugar. A baby's going to cry. But your kid's sitting there just doing endless violence. All these military guys and all these police officers now, they've been doing that their whole life. And they want the real thing. That's why you're having a lot of these unfortunate situations with the police overstepping their boundaries. And they publicize it. They want the people to react. They want violence in the streets. They want excuses for martial law. We will not give it to them. We need to come together to be kind and respect each other and to move forward into positive relationships. And part of that is going to be acknowledging your own spiritual presence and power. And there's many groups and places you can go. I'm sure you go to them. I'm going to recommend people, again, check out my Mount Shasta conference. Alex Collier, Omnic, James Gilliland. We'll be seeing a screening of the movie Stranger at the Pentagon about Valiant Thor's mission from Craig Campobasso. Scott Lemriel will be there, Ted Mars, and, of course, Michael Salla, one of the greatest political writers of our time, putting out a lot of good information, will be there as well. So Anya Schaefer from Germany, Omnic's assistant, will be sharing information. It's a wonderful thing. I've invited you, Laura, to come as my guest if you'd like to come. It's going to be a great week in Mount Shasta. Unbelievable. We're at meditation and journeys on the mountain, sky watches last year. James, people were having UFOs flare up all around us. I personally don't need that anymore, but lots of good, we're going to have good music and food, and it should be a wonderful time for us to actually, for those of you who doubt, I think you've interviewed Omnek, correct?
She's coming up in a show. Have not interviewed her yet, but I wanted to talk with you about her very quickly here.
Yeah.
So Venus is and I know those listening to this show are on the ascension path, and so when you bring this perspective of the ufology crowd, everything is converging. We're having UFO people converge with spiritual people. We're having science converge with spirituality. So that's wonderful as we all learn about our own responsibility here. But what we learn about Venus is they are another dimension. These planets that we look at from our planet have ascended, according to Patricia Diane Cotarolos. And they rose up to another dimension in the last 14,000 years when we shifted. So here on Earth, we are here with the laggards, and we had hoped that our vibration of love from Lemuria would influence them into love. Well, that didn't happen. And so now it's fascinating that you talk about off-planet beings coming in and working at a high level to change things, change the vibration. So I want to ask you about those individuals working here on our planet. What are they doing for this high level vibration? And then we'll talk about Omnic and Tibet, because that's a whole other piece of the puzzle too.
Okay. Well, first of all, Venus, the physical life on Venus did ascend to the astral plane, and they live on the interior. However, there is a physical life on Venus on the interior as well. So they coexist in what we would call the same space, but in a different dimension. So there's life on the interior of Venus, physical, like Valiant Thor and that group, and then there's also astral beings, like where Omnek came from. There is a domed city called the City of Retz, and this is actually partial physical and partial etheric astral connection zone, where the higher planes, it's a meeting zone. Uh, Jay Hertak talks about that as we could kind of call them way stations where energy is multidimensional beings come here. Now, some beings like Omnek, and the being that I'm connected to came from the astral plane and the inner planes with the masters and descended to Earth. Omnek came with a very special mission to live here for a long time. Some of them come on shorter missions to actually become involved in the populace. Others of them stay on board ships and make excursions and come down all the time. For them, it's a short journey, and they're contacting individuals that are needed. And many times their contacts are not revealed who they are. They have an extremely powerful presence and adherence to truth consciousness, and their expression is just always very positive, and you will be surprised. That's one of the things you get from Omnek. She's kind of, at the end of her mission here. She has had a stroke and slowed down a bit, but the joy and the energy that comes from her, you will sense. It's a childlike abandon of the presence. Energy is just always like she has a laugh and a sense of humor and a way of looking at things that is not involved in our world. The worries that we have about things and just aren't on her radar. She just doesn't go there. She deals with whatever she deals with in a very high character way. But so a lot of them are working directly in the secret space programs in the belly of the beast, and they're down there and they're working with benevolent scientists who are forced into positions with threats of death and secrecy and mind control to do these things, and these beings wouldn't be doing these things. They wouldn't have made this device that could destroy the earth or blow things up or cause earthquakes had they known what it was going to be used for. Everything's compartmentalized and controlled by a very, let's call it broad-ranging, sinister force that works over a long period of time. And so now some of these individuals who have been abused in that way, the positive forces are contacting them and helping them to break out. Some of the higher ones are actually being given asylum on board ships so that they can come and share their stories after they're developed themselves. Many of them have gone through, very unique lives that will be revealed to us. Now, to obsess on these and to want to know the truth, and I get so many questions about so many different things and people sending me videos and stuff. I think it's really important, like you said, to focus on the spiritual aspects. I want to share a picture that was given to me, and that's Kutumi. That's one of the ascended masters who is very much involved in the synthesis of all of these things you just spoke about. You talked about the physical people, we have the spiritual people, we have the ETs, we have the conspiracies. All of this must come under the banner of truth and revelation of that which is real. And apocalypse in the Bible, the apocalypse, yeah, well, guess what? We're in the apocalypse. Apocalypse means revelation, the uncovering. We're revealing everything now, and people have to have a choice. There are those people in the Matrix who you go, whatever you say, if you try to share something with them, they go, no, it's not. It's just an automatic knee-jerk reaction. And it's not that you shouldn't try to do that, but oftentimes people will not get that information from close friends or family. People have to awaken to the spiritual energies, and I recommend that that you seek like-minded people. And it's okay to know the intricacies of what the matrix is and how it is, but you're going to go through the first stage: denial, anger, resentment, acceptance, and forgiveness for that whole situation. It's like the stages of death. You go through this, and finally, most people get in the anger phase and hold on to that, like Alex Jones. Rah, rah, they're doing this, they're doing that. A lot of the stuff he says is true, but let's focus on the solutions, and if we just go into fear and focusing on those negative plans, we don't do it. I'm going to recommend everyone who has someone in the military and the police force, these individuals need to be connected to a spiritual truth, because these are the enforcers of a matrix system that could create violence and often does. And I don't want people to focus on it, but these individuals that are in that system are very much in a mindset and a controlled discipline of a top-down situation. And it's the same situation. So I'd like everyone, if they could meditate and send prayers to themselves. Where we need help in the world is to, how do we reach people that are in these very limited belief systems that are top-down, where their jobs are threatened. There's guys in the police force that go, I don't like them beating that guy, but there's 10 guys around there that really want that guy beaten, and enforcing this heavy-duty police judgmental. It's kind of an unwritten law. If you try to escape the police, you get an extra beating at the end. So what is the solution to that type of mentality? And the person has a wife and a kid and a family, he's in that job, he knows he's going to be ostracized, they just keep their mouths shut. Same thing in corporations, even in white collars. We got these guys, not really paying attention and just signing these papers in this banking system and schemes that are going on. So how do we reach these individuals? And I think it's really has to be done in a natural way, in a non-threatening way. So I think your radio show, the teachings that you have, for those who have wearied from carrying the armor of this world and protecting themselves from all forces of negativity, to disengage and to not to polarize themselves against those thoughts, but to seek to synthesize and unify those thoughts and to stand in the power of their own truth. Mm-hmm. So, along the positive lines.
Yeah, that's why we have this show called Healing Conversations, because we've been beat up by the world with our thoughts and this matrix that you spoke of. Fascinating. We can talk to you for hours. And what you said there, I want to sum up a little bit, because here we are. Many of the listeners to this show are well aware of this and well aware of the ascension path, but what you said were some great comments from off-planet beings who share a common theme, is to help mankind, humanity, elevate their consciousness, take responsibility, and step up into the galactic platform. So as we do this, isn't it fascinating that we can see why back in the 50s, we did not take Valiant Thor up on his offer. He offered, you said one of the primary missions was to end all nuclear transactions, and we've seen that nuclear triggers have been dismantled by or disabled by off-planet beings. So his mission was to give us a self-healing modality or technology, and we can see why disclosure has not happened, because it would totally dissolve the matrix that we have now. So looking forward, when we talk about developing our own spirituality, let's go back to the great masters, the masters of the Far East, who in Jesus' missing years, he was with the masters in the Far East. That's out there as well. So I find it fascinating, I'm getting chills here when I speak, that Omnic came in through Tibet. Mm-hmm. This is multidimensional as well. This is where the great masters do teleport. So make that connection here as we close our program today. Isn't that fascinating?
It is very fascinating. There has been ongoing contact from time immemorial in various locations through various spiritual orders and response of humanity to what we call the activity or the divine light energy that's going on the planet, that's been a focus of the what they call the Manus. The development of life on the planet is actually under a non-material spiritual administration, which on our planet unfortunately went into default and was taken over by some hostile forces. So some of the situations on our planet aren't exactly harmonious, and we're being misled. So these positions that have been removed have to be overcome. But one of the main focal points used to be, the main focal point was a masculine vortex on the planet, which is the Himalayas. And as I mentioned previously, from the fall of Atlantis and Lemuria, there were various temples of the Order of Melchizedek that had the living flames present, that you could go and sit before a flame and it would reflect to you the silence. And these went underground. These were known as the Ras. Ramu is underneath Mount Shasta. Ra Golo beneath the city, beneath the Bermuda Triangle. And Posidid beneath the Mato Grosso. Rama underneath the Himalayas. Ra in Egypt. Order of the Star in Eastern Europe. And probably many, many other sacred sites where there have been inner retreats of these galactic civilizations which have had very, very limited contact in the past with the surface population. In the future will be invited down there. They indicated to me that the quantum field is very important for us to communicate with, and that we can ask permission. I wasn't really into, I know that symbols are important, but they actually told me that glyphs and symbols are going to be very important along the lines of the crop circle type information that is going to be imprinting our consciousness with multidimensional communication that will establish a vibration in all our bodies. So the good work is, from the good guys, is they are bringing in higher vibrations through a technology of the ships that will actually restore the natural order of our life streams. We will purify the air. We will purify the oceans. We can remove the nuclear waste, and we can regrow back the veins of gold and the natural resources that have been taken out of the ground and are destabilizing us, because these actually live in the universe. So we can connect and become part of that. So they asked me to connect to the Ascended Masters, and I have not really explored that in my life, and I've been finding that I was directly asked to communicate with, to invoke Kutumi and Archangel Raphael. I have some healing for my own self. I actually don't have the time or can't afford a lot of the products that I have for healing. It's the time and that I need to prioritize in my life. And I've been very personally involved. I'm sharing a little something here. Maybe people can reflect on it, but I've been very involved in, spending so much time on the internet and all these things that I'm doing. And they basically said, don't worry about that now. Focus on your own vibration. And they wanted me to share that with people today. Don't focus so much on all of this stuff. Focus on doing what brings you joy, what brings you in your higher vibration. And they strongly suggested connection with nature. Leave the cities, leave the cell phone towers, get deep into nature, into the silence, where the only thing you might hear is a cloud over, or a plane going overhead. Get as far away from civilization as possible and to listen to yourself within. And one of the things I'm going to recommend is that if people want to look into the Ascended Masters, there are potent spiritual forces that if we ask for intervention, it will be given, but we have to ask permission. It's a law. As you ask, you shall receive. If you're in denial that there is a larger universe out there, you'll never see it. But once you see it, there's actually forces waiting and already sending energies to us. And if we tune into it, it's like if we're closed off, we're still going to get wet. But if we open up our cup, our chalice of our higher vehicle, we can bring it in. So let's do a prayer that you can invoke, and I'll just do a spontaneous here. I'll say, Dearest Kutumi, I'm going to use Kutumi, the master of the second ray of love wisdom. I ask for your intervention. Please remove all distractions from my mind and my schedule so that I may focus completely on my life's true purpose. Please allow all changes to occur gently and peacefully. Help me to know my spiritual guidance and divine will. I now release all ego-based fears that would deter me from my path. Help me to recognize when I procrastinate with respect to my true life's purpose so that I may immerse in the joy of spiritual service. Amen. Whatever your prayer is, do it from your heart. You could say it openly. Be in an attitude of expectation and positive connection. And just know that it's done. And go about your life. So, to recap, I'm going to say you got the 5-pointed star. You've got the inner life. You've got the connection. We've shared a little bit about the real physical actions of our benevolent space family and the plan of redemption, and the ongoing process of revelation, and the mechanics of all of this, how it's going to take place, remains to be seen. There's no timelines. And I asked about intervention with them, and I said, when is, what's the thing? And they go, they're not going to save anything. They're going to let as much destruction take place without the planet being destroyed or complete and total chaos. It'll intervene in certain situations, but people need to wake up, the general populace, not you people here. But again, we have to slip under the covers gently and to lovingly embrace our fellow man and lift them up, not with polarization attacks of what they believe, but through a gentle mirroring process of leading them into a greater light and expansion. And I want to thank you, Lauren. Your show is a great tool for that, and I'm honored to be here and to share my information. And if you join the inner circle, that's going to be a great deal for you. You're going to get a lot of information over the next year, secrets about what happened when the star led the, and you'll learn about the 3 masters that came and bought Christ things. A lot of things in the Bible, a lot of things about Victor 1, the holograms, lots of stories there, and spiritual truths that Dr. Frank told over 29 biannual meetings, or for a while they were annual, so many years of meetings. When he would go to Victor 1, be on board the spaceship for 3 days, and then come back to the inner circle and share the information that he learned on the Akashic records and wonderful spiritual information. I'll warn you, it gets kind of preachery because he's really into the Christ thing, but it's a lot of wonderful information there that I'll be happy to share with you, Laura, as well as when that comes out.
Yeah, we love that. That is Frank Strange's archive with his personal experience on board Victor 1, Inner Earth, Venus, around the universe. Fascinating stuff. Thank you for being the caretaker of that information and getting it out for us. And thank you for standing in your truth and stepping forward here. There is no room for doubt, really, or skepticism when it's a spiritual path. And what we've heard today is, while there could be some fear factors in the UFO crowd, it all comes down to spirituality. And that is the greatest story of all. And we can see now why it's taken so long for this truth to come out, because it's a total game changer.
Yeah, they did mention, they said they wanted to give, like, to you and myself and to other people. They said, listen, for the light workers, they said, listen, we know that they're scanning the light workers, and they're going, a lot of them are a lot of the people have lost their permissions. They've been fractured and destroyed, and a lot of people have lost their faith. They're not seeing the changes that have been told and talked about and prophesized and expected. With all of this information, and those of us who are a tight-knit group, we're all going, yeah, we're there, we're in a loving circle, and it's happening, and you see all this stuff. Still, no outer acknowledgement. But ladies and gentlemen, the stage is set. The orchestra is playing, and right now we're looking at the front illusion matrix before the stage. It's just a little of this, the sound guys running around. The curtain's about to drop, and if we're prepared in the inner life and adhere to the principles of unconditional love and the golden rule and forgiveness and discernment, a lot of discernment, tuning to within, and that's what I'm going to leave us today is look to the Christ and the light and the love within, and know that a leap of faith is just as easily as leaving ourselves in a position of fear and negation, of doubt. Take the leap of faith of the good news. It's a much brighter path than the negative one. And victory to the light.
Robert Potter, thank you so much for being on Healing Conversations.
Thank you, Lauren.
We the people are disclosure.
For more fascinating information from Robert Potter, I invite you to listen to an audio healing conversation with Rob, which details his early and formative years on the spiritual path with Pyramid Man Fred Bell. And be sure to check out Robert's special offer to his Inner Circle membership, which includes monthly releases of audio of Dr. Frank Strange's teachings with Valiant Thor. This is a wonderful archive now available with Robert Potter's Inner Circle membership, available in the special offer button on this page. I'm Loren Gailey. Thank you for watching Healing Conversations.